Awesome.
Okay. So if you want to ask questions, please do so in the chat. We also can invite folks to speak.
Yep.
Hello from Morocco.
Hello.
Hello, Morocco. So I guess to give a little preface, I don't know that we've introduced everyone. I'm Eric Seidel, if you haven't met me. You may have known me from previous exploits, including leading Flutter for many years, and leading the Dart team for a while, and working on browsers before that. And now I'm causing trouble with Shorebird, where we're trying to make multi-platform the default by making Flutter work better for businesses. Felix, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Felix. You probably recognize me maybe from VGV or Block or some other open source libraries. But yeah, now I'm at Shorebird working on Code Push, among other things. So yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Brian.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brian. I am a former Googler. I worked on the internal facing Flutter at Google team where I helped Google teams use Flutter better. And where I maintained actually very similar libraries to the ones Felix maintained, but within Google. Yeah, now I've been here at Shorebird for about a month and a half, and yeah.
Yeah. Looks like we got our first question from Mohammed. Apologies if I'm slaughtering your name. It says, "Hi from Oman. Can you please explain for us how Code Push will work with the stores Google, Apple?" I think that we answered a little bit of this in the FAQ off of docs.shorebird.dev. I probably need to offer a longer explanation. I think the short of it is that Code Push already does work with these stores. In my experience, all of the largest apps already use Code Push, and there are very popular large projects from both Microsoft and, well, more than both. It's Microsoft, Expo, and Ionic all offer Code Push solutions. Basically, Code Push allows you to do what a web view would do. And there's lots of web view apps in the stores. There are restrictions from the stores about you can't like replace your app with something different. You can't tell consumers that your app is a solitaire game and then have it be something completely different when they download. But otherwise, Code Push is a very common thing in the stores. And so we're just making it work for Flutter. Another question from Sharma. Have you all considered a free tier? Yes. And we'll have one soon. I don't know how soon. The difficulty with a free tier is it just requires more accounting on the back end, because you then suddenly have 2 tiers of usage as opposed to just one. And so, you have to have restrictions on one tier and not on another, and we just haven't implemented that level of complexity in our back end yet.
I'm trying to keep up and include links.
I'm wondering about this cool solution. This is from Imad. I'm wondering about this cool solution, but can you just give us the main purpose and how about free mode limit services? So the main purpose of our current product offering is to allow you to update your app without having to wait for a full review. I think from talking to customers, the main driver of interest there is oh my goodness, I made a mistake, pushed something incompatible to my backend, and now all of my customers are hitting a failure, and we're losing $1 million a minute, or whatever. And so it's for that sort of emergency fixes where you're making the app store and you're making the app experience better for everybody, and not having to go through a full waiting for the team, to wake up and look at your app and review and decide that your images are wrong, or, other things that may randomly happen in a review unrelated to just fixing the one bug you're trying to fix. And I think we talked about the free tier. Marin asks, I have a fun one. Do you think #1 most updated Flutter repo issue will now be closed? I hope so.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I know some people have already linked to Shorebird on that issue, so I think people are catching on. another one about how it works. How does code push work?
So the way that it works is that it works very similar to how it works when you normally ship your app. So when you normally ship your app, Dart runs inside a virtual machine, and you pre-compile the Dart code into an architecture-specific format for executing in that virtual machine. And really all that we do on the Android side is we make it possible to safely and correctly download a new copy of that compiled Dart code specific for the architecture you're running on to the device. That's really all. The big difference between Dart here and JavaScript is that JavaScript ends up being compiled on the device, whereas with Dart, we pre-compile it on the host to the specific architecture. But it's not generic code that can execute anything. It's only the architecture-specific instructions for running within the Dart virtual machine.
I think I'm trying to keep track of the questions as they come in because they are rapid fire. It looks like the next one is how does it work, which I think we hopefully just answered. Let us know if you have more questions. And will it affect app size and performance?
So I don't know what the current numbers are on app size. I expect that currently the Shorebird updater adds probably about a meg. I don't expect that it needs to. I think we may have addressed this in our FAQ, but I think we can probably get that down to half a meg or maybe even less for the total app size adjustment. In terms of performance, it has no effect on performance. Updated Shorebird code, code compiled and released with Shorebird, code updated with Shorebird on Android has zero effect on performance, and our approach on iOS, we believe we can get to be similarly just as fast or nearly as fast as the existing Flutter code today.
Cool. The next one is, could your technology be used for multi-environment testing similar to what Expo does?
Do we know what that means?
Maybe. I mean, we currently support flavors, so you can create an app per flavor in Shorebird and then manage that just like you would when you're releasing to the App Store. But we do have issues to support multiple channels, so you can create like a development channel or a staging channel or whatever channel you want, and then publish patches just for devices that are listening for that on that channel. Not sure if that 100% answers the question, but let us know if you'd like.
Yeah, that was from Diego, and so Diego, yeah, let us know if we interpreted environments correctly.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Nils asks, what is the roadmap after adding code push for iOS?
Great question.
There's lots of things. We did some brainstorming. I guess I could pull up that doc. We did some brainstorming about things we want to build, but one of the things that I've learned is when you're very new starting a project, mostly it's sort of day-to-day planning. You're just trying to do the thing to make the next customer excited, get the next customer over the line, because it's very hard to predict. So we have lots of ideas. I think if I look forward a few years, one of the things I would like to offer is a consistent developer experience, a trusted name in the Flutter space where you come to help get Flutter installed correctly, you come to help build and manage your releases, to deal with outages, to deal with version management. I think Unity has done a decent job of this in the gaming space. They have their things that they're good at and things that they're less good at sometimes, but they once you choose Unity, you can go to Unity and they have lots of offerings for things you might need. I think we also might have missed, Mohammed had a question or a statement, I guess. Your ideas, especially great for businesses, hope you will work on private servers.
Mm-hmm.
We do intend to offer an on-prem or cloud-prem, possibly even a self-hosted solution. We haven't gone through that yet. Right now, almost all of our code is open source. The only bits that aren't are the server bits, and that's in part because we're learning how to do all those bits. And we just wanted to make sure we didn't we wanted to help get those right. But we may yet provide a Docker container or even just fully open source that later on.
And then we have many Flutter apps interact with the native layers with platform channels. Would or could native code also be updated as well as the Dart code with Shorebird?
I haven't looked into it in great detail. My guess is no. On App Store restrictions, I don't know that, say, the Java VM will accept new code during execution on Android, and on iOS, Swift is precompiled, and you would need a way to like run Swift in an interpreter or something like that. I'd have to look into it more, but my guess is not. I also believe both stores have explicit prohibitions against changing native code. So that means that Flutter plugins can't be updated. Again, this is my personal understanding. I may be wrong, but I suspect that Flutter plugins can't be updated. I suspect that native code can't be updated. But we will be able to update any and all Dart code that, again, runs inside a virtual machine or interpreter on these platforms, as well as any and all sort of image, font, those sorts of assets. We don't support the asset updates today, but that's straightforward for us to add.
I can find the issue. I believe we have an issue for that.
Cool. Thanks, Felix.
Yep.
Then we have, is it possible to have only select parts of the app as dynamic instead of the full app? I'm assuming using anything different than AOT will affect performance. Might be wrong, but I don't mind having just a select part be dynamic while the rest is the same. And I believe we addressed this via our patching mechanism.
But to answer that more fully, that's actually been a difficulty with past code push solutions. And so one of the reasons why we designed it this way is so that you didn't have to make that choice. You didn't have to make that compromise. With our code push solution, you don't have to pre-select what parts of your app you can update. You can, after the fact, decide to change any of it, which makes, I think, for a much better developer experience and thus better user outcomes.
And then Dracon asks, when you code push, do your users have to install a new version from the stores?
No. So the way that code push works, and maybe I should pull up a demo, or if one of you have a setup working, I may have broken mine this morning because I was working on the next version. But I
might have one. But yeah, go ahead.
The users do not have to update anew from the stores. What happens is that when the user launches the app, it downloads in the background a patch file to patch your compiled Dart code. And those patch files are relatively small. Currently, they're about 50, 100 kilobytes, something like that. We think we can probably bring that down another 10x to mean like 1 to 5 kilobytes, but right now they're 50 to 100. And then that downloads and it updates and it prepares so that on the next launch of the app, it uses your new code.
And then one about the naming. Why is it named Code Push? Is that not trademarked by React Native?
It's we use lowercase code push, not capital.
I'm not aware of the trademarks. I can look into that more. The reason to use the word code push, and we can use something else, but the reason to use code push was just to help people quickly understand that it works just the same way that these things do. And that gets back to an earlier question that is common in these conversations around, what will the stores think? And part of the reason to use that same name in describing the system that we've built is one of, well, if React Native does it, it must be okay. And that's kind of why we ended up with that name. But over-the-air updates, or we could come up with some other quirky name for it.
We have not hired a marketing person yet.
I thought someone suggested like stork or something. I forgot. We had some like weird. We had some ideas, but yeah, naming will probably change.
Next question from Marin, and again, apologies to everyone if I'm mispronouncing names. I'm particularly bad at that. Will we be able to use any old Flutter version with Shorebird, or will that require on-premise host? I have quite a few outdated apps.
We're
So
just
we were
working.
just talking about this
So we've
last
got
night.
our finger on the pulse, it feels like.
Yeah.
So Dart released a breaking change this week. A great breaking change. Not no shade on Dart, but Dart moved to Dart 3 this week, and that makes it so that our very next release, which is coming out hopefully later today, will not be able to update previously released apps because it has a new version of Dart. And so we intend to and have to solve that exact problem. The intended how we expect this to work is that you will just run Shorebird build, it will detect, or you'll run Shorebird patch or Shorebird release, it will detect the version of Dart that you're using in your product, in your project, and we will silently download in the background and use the correct version of Flutter with it. Sort of an automatic FVM is how we imagine it working. We haven't implemented that today, but we see the path. We were designing it out last night. And yeah, I understand the pain. I've dealt with many companies who, yes, have some very old versions of Flutter. Currently, we started supporting Code Push in 3 months ago Flutter, but we could backport it to many years ago Flutter if necessary.
Yeah, maybe one other thing to note is with this upcoming release, we are going to add a safety check that will prevent you from accidentally patching with an incompatible version of Flutter. So you will see an error if you try to patch and you're using Dart 3, but you released with whatever Dart 2.19. So you don't have to worry about accidentally corrupting the users out there. So, but yeah, we're hopefully going to make that easier to support and make it transparent so you don't have to worry about it as a user. And I linked the issue. So if you're interested in that or if it's really important to you, just give it a thumbs up.
And while we're linking issues, Marin also made a comment that says whenever iOS support comes, there's going to be a flood of people here. And we can say, yes, we know. There is a tracking issue that has, I don't know if we're up to triple digits of upvotes, but we're approaching, if not, yeah. Then Renan asks, any plans beyond Code Push?
So I just pulled up our brainstorming doc so I can list off some of these. Again, we don't know. We're so focused on Code Push at the moment, but things we've looked at doing is push to deploy or assistance in deploying your app, including maybe previewing your app on the web or with an emulator, running on a cloud host for you. We've also talked about trying to make install better. The Flutter install experience is a lot of steps right now, and I think we could do a lot better and help customers with that. And similarly with version management. We've also talked about integrating with some sort of error monitoring solution, whether that's Sentry or something else, or writing our own very simple one to sort of provide a safety net so that we could do automatic rollbacks or automatic code pushing of a fix or automatic code pushing of a rollback. We've also talked about having a local emulator for testing. One of the things that would commonly come up when I was running the Flutter project is people ask about how do I develop for iOS from Windows. I think Flutter has a lot of the pieces there. I think they just need to sort of be put together a little bit better, including maybe with a cloud side to that. And I think there could be some compelling offerings we could make there. There's a whole bunch more. There's analytics and releasing and managing these things. We don't know is the simple answer, but there's lots of ideas.
And Monstrum asks, I was wondering if it's possible in the future using the same method to implement a plugin system or extension so it can be sended on runtime. There's deferred support on Android only, but I guess is required to import on compile time.
Possibly. We haven't looked into it. Code Push is designed today around fixing problems in your app, making patches to your app. Plugins are a little bit of a different beast. It is definitely something we could... There are paths to that, but it's not currently on our roadmap. If it's important to you, I think we should file a bug about that sort of plugin design, or please feel free to. And I think we could start collecting upvotes. It's one of the things we did when we were doing the Flutter team, was we literally just looked at the issue database and see what people cared about and did that. There were some things that were hard for us to do on the Flutter team at Google. Code Push was one of them. We actually built several Code Push solutions inside Google. Not all of them saw the light of day to the public. But we have run a sort of similar system here where we want you to upvote issues because when you do, we fix them.
Yes, that is our one of our primary ways of knowing what to build, what people want. So file issues, upvote issues, be noisy with your needs and wants. Right. Pranav asks, can someone play the guitar behind them?
The most important question.
Eric, I will let you answer this on your own, but I will not subject anyone to that.
Yes, my guitar days are many behind me. That's why they're wall ornaments rather than sitting next to me. So no.
And then another question from Diego. He says, scenario. So imagine we are installing an app like Shorebird Device Preview, and from this app test on the fly Flutter apps that are in Shorebird Cloud. That is using the engine to render the app via code push, with each app being like a package. This would allow, for example, a developer without a Mac to test the app on the iPhone, etc. Would this be possible in the future with your engine? And I think that is, you sort of spoke to that just a bit ago.
Yeah, I think exactly what you propose. I don't know exactly all the technical details, but I think we should have a longer conversation, Diego. I think we should talk about what your needs and how we can solve them. Because I think some of the things you touch on are exactly things that we've heard from other customers that, and yeah, we should talk about how to help that. Because yes, I think we could do things like that.
And then we've got a question about, about our Flutter fork. So I realized from the docs while going through the code that Shorebird uses a forked Flutter engine to enable Shorebird builds and update. Will this stay the same, or how are we going to keep the engine revision updated?
Yeah. So in terms of keeping it updated, we have some scripts that aren't fully automated yet, but they're a day of work away from being fully automated. So I don't worry about keeping them up to date. Our changes to the engine are incredibly minor. All we really do is we make basically 2 function calls from inside the engine, and those function calls then go into our library. And so the 2 function calls are one that we tell our library that the engine is started and give it some configuration information. And the other is that we call back when there's a failure during launch. That's a safety mechanism to make sure that if for whatever reason the patch that was applied failed during launch, we want to make sure to mark that patch as bad and not run from that device again. But otherwise, all our code is in a Rust library.
I believe that's a public repo, right? It's just Shorebird tech/updater on GitHub.
Yep.
Correct.
So you can see how all that works. And Mohammed S, does code push work if the app is obfuscated? And also, why is code push not included on Flutter?
So does it work if it's obfuscated? The Android version of code push today has no problems with being obfuscated. Have a good time. It should all work just fine. The iOS version, I don't know yet. I suspect it will have no trouble, but the iOS version is going to be some more invasive changes into Dart to work around some of the technical restrictions. On iOS, we're only allowed to run interpreted code, not just in a virtual machine, but it has to be interpreted specifically. And so getting the Dart interpreter to play nice with the precompiled AOT code is going to be a little bit of work. And I expect we can make that work fine with obfuscation, but I don't know yet. Ask me again in a month.
And I think that is the end of the current set of questions we have. I definitely encourage people to ask more, or if I made a mistake and missed your question, I apologize. And please feel free to yell at me in the comments.
I guess I would say part of the question, right? Why is code push not included?
Oh yeah. I guess why hasn't Google done that? Is the
So I want to talk a little bit more about the first part of the question. So first of all, like obfuscation, I think that's a common business need or a common business desire to obfuscate. And since we're about building Flutter for business, yes, we will make it work. I was more relating the exact current today set of things that work and don't. In terms of why Google hasn't done this, It's complicated. Google is a very large company with lots of moving pieces. And this was just one of the many things that seemed easier to do from the outside. And so here I am.
And just dropped a link to the Flutter bug discussing that. I think there might be, I believe Ian Hixie wrote up a more comprehensive Flutter roadmap that I was not able to quickly find in a search, but Ian laid it out, I think, a little bit more compactly about why that is not on the Flutter roadmap. Okay, and then Aman says, "Oh, go ahead."
Oh, go ahead. You were on it.
I was going to say, Aman says, I discussed with Eric on the demo call, but still has some doubts about how this will work with in an add to app scenario and scenarios with multiple engines.
The good news here is that Brian, from his experience inside Google, and Felix also from working with large apps, have experience with add to app. Like we've been there, done that. I suspect that the current solution that we've put together for Android CodePush may not have perfect add to app integration. There's work to be done there. It's not something we've tried to tackle. I believe it's all very solvable. I do think it's going to require some work on the product, and we would be very interested. Let me underline that and bold that. Very interested in talking with customers who are using add to app and would like to work with us to make sure that we're building the right thing for you. Because last I knew, and my data's old here, but I think it was like 19 of the top 20 Flutter using apps on the Play Store used add to app. It was some similarly silly high number like that. Add to app is the way that Flutter is consumed by large apps. And so it absolutely has to be well supported from Shorebird. It's just a question of how we get there and who we work with to on that journey.
There's a response saying, I don't think taking Hicks's answer is right to point to, because he mostly claims it's against App Store policy, which Shorebird disagrees with.
Also, App Store policies have changed. I don't know how long ago Hixie gave that answer, but CodePush was something that I think the stores pushed a lot harder against years ago. And then we just see, again, with React Native and with Cordova and with, WebView based apps and stuff, it's just commonplace these days.
I guess the thing that people always come back to, I feel, is that apps get rejected. And I think a lot of that is, I think we mentioned this before, it's really like CodePush is just a tool, but you can use that tool and decide to push an update that changes your app entirely, and then Apple or Google can completely reject your submission and take you down from the App Store if they choose. So I think a lot of it is also developer dependent, or it's how you use the tool to comply with the App Store policies as well as the technical implementation. So we can't guarantee that the apps won't get rejected, obviously, but
I mean, we can guarantee that we've done our part to make sure that we are using compliant technologies.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, found the roadmap. Sweet.
Well, are there any other questions? Did you say you did have a demo working on your machine?
I was just working on some of the upgrades, but I can try to demo. Yeah, let me.
When I used it this morning, my machine was in a half-broken state, and it.
Let's try it. Let me pull up my counter that I have, a trusty counter, and I'll share my screen.
It is often the case when you are, working on the car, you take it apart.
Yeah.
But then you have to put it back together in order to drive it.
Yeah.
2 wheels on it. Can you drive it out of the garage?
Yeah.
Well, maybe, but.
All right, let's see. This is going to be completely improv, so I will share my...
live demos are the best, Felix.
Yep. Let me know if this is big enough.
It is readable to me, at least. But again, in the comments or in the chat, I keep saying comments.
It's like you can click on it to make it big.
Okay. Yeah. Chat says it looks good.
Cool. So I have here just a counter app, nothing fancy. So I already have Shorebird installed on this machine, but if you don't have it installed, and I was just hacking on it, so it's gonna upgrade some dependencies. But if you don't have it installed, head over to shorebird.dev or docs.shorebird.dev.
We'll get that link.
Yeah, awesome. But once you have it installed and you've created an account and upgraded to a paid tier, you can list your apps. So in this case, I have some apps here, but I don't have my counter because I've never actually released this app or created an app in Shorebird. So I can do that using Shorebird init. And Shorebird init will create a shorebird.yaml. I don't know what it's, I think it's probably, yeah, I was installing again because I was hacking on it. It was probably upgrading a bunch of stuff. I'll call it counter, and Shorebird generates this file for me. And it's important that you should check this into version control because this is how Shorebird uniquely identifies your app. And the updater uses this to determine if you have a patch available, etc. So make sure you don't lose this file. But once I've done that, I can run Shorebird apps list again. I do see my counter is here, so I do have an app now in Shorebird. I don't have any release or patch. So what we can do is run a Shorebird release. That will build a release build that has the Shorebird engine, which can take a little bit because this is basically running a Flutter build app bundle. And then it'll upload your artists to Shorebird. So hopefully wrap up in a few seconds. And if there are any questions,
an app bundle, it builds it in triplicate because it builds it for 3 architectures, right? The ARM64, the ARM for running an emulator.
Yeah, we can see here we have the 3 architectures. We have a little confirmation that this is the 1.0-dev build number 2. This is our UUID, and then we currently support Android. So this looks good to me, so I'll hit yes to continue. And that will generate the artifacts and upload them to Shorebird's backend. And once that's done, there's some instructions. So at this point, you would take that app bundle that we generated and publish it on the Play, or submit it to the Play Store for review. For the sake of the demo, I'll just do a Shorebird run so that we can see the app running in an emulator. Why is it doing web? Don't want web assets. I wonder if that's
fine. It's just,
oh yeah, it's probably just because I switched channels.
I think that's just from the full list of artifacts it downloads.
Yeah.
There's Flutter for whatever reason downloads more artifacts when you run.
I think it's also because I just switched and have the new revision of Shorebird, so it's gonna pull all the new artifacts. Anyway, it's doing the Gradle tasks now, so that should start up in a second. And this is just a counter again. Nothing really fancy here. I was planning for the demo to just change it to use material 3. Because as you can see, this is just using material 2. So yeah, now that it's running, we can kill it. I'm not gonna do a Shorebird run again. We just have it already installed on the emulator. So now I can patch this by making a change. In this case, let's say we forgot to enable material 3. That was really important. Now I can make that change and run a Shorebird patch. And that will rebuild a release build. It'll pull down the current release that we have on the Shorebird backend for this app, and then it'll generate a diff. So again, it takes a little bit because it's running a Flutter build basically. And we should have a prompt. Oh, nice. Oh, I wonder why I have the mismatch. Yeah, so this is what I was currently working on to prevent you from shooting yourself in the foot and publishing an incompatible version. But I'm wondering why it thinks we published with an older version.
I think this is why we don't do live demos.
Yeah.
But I think what you're seeing is that the 3 of us all have our machines in various states of disarray.
Yeah. This is what I was literally just working on.
As we work on getting the next Shorebird ready for you.
Yep.
But how it would continue from there is that the patch would get sent to our servers. and then if you would go back to the emulator, which you could, and when the user would click on the app, it would show the existing old app while it launches. And then when he launches it again, it would have installed the new app in the background while it was running the first time, and it would then launch.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could probably install. Oh, I already have Shorebird installed. I could probably just quickly hack it to whatever Shorebird patch.
I
This,
think we should just simply post a YouTube video demo. It's been a while, and I've had it come up several times.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I had similar trouble this morning where I'd got my Shorebird into a bad state by having hacked it manually.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need a video with like voiceover. There is a demo video on the site that we need to update probably as well, and we have some videos in Twitter. I think this might work. I'll give it a second, and if it doesn't, then we'll point people to a video. But yeah, we're in the middle of making a bunch of changes. So actually, this looks good.
And this is why we have automated testing, because
Yep.
before
Yes.
it leaves our desks and comes to you, it runs through a whole battery of tests.
Why?
I think you wanted the dash dev in there.
Oh yeah, my bad. I should have just accepted it as it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Let's see if this works.
And while we're waiting for that to go, Silver Hairs asked, is there an integration with Fastlane?
Not yet, but I think that's an obvious next step. One of the things that we've talked about building. So right now, I'm focused on getting iOS done, and these other two gentlemen have been working with our existing customers. Who there's several who show up every day, and we just work with our existing customers and help get them over the line. And by over the line, I mean successfully using Shorebird in production. But we have talked about doing things like Fastlane integration to take care of some of the building, to take care of some of the submissions for you. I think that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I abandoned the demo because we probably like completely butchered the thing by switching shorter versions in the middle. So yeah.
Yeah.
Disregard that.
Yeah. So I think just for thoroughness, Eric, I apologize if you already said this, but what would have happened there is when the patch successfully was updated, the next time Felix launched the app, the Shorebird updater would find that it would query our servers, say, hey, is there a patch available? Servers would say, yes, here it is. Shorebird updater would download it, apply it, and then the next time the app launched after that, you would see the updated counter app using the new Material 3 design that was just released. And technology says code magic integration would be great.
Well, for coming. Do let us know if you would like us to do another AMA, and we will get a demo video posted because it's been a while since we've done one, and we're working on getting the next release out, hopefully today, maybe Monday, which will include 3.10 support and some of that warnings that Felix was talking about, as well as some other fixes. It looks like we have one more question.
We got a couple more coming in. So there was a comment, I think, I don't know if I cut out. There's a comment about code magic integration.
We don't have code magic integration today, but I think that's a thing that I would be happy to explore. I haven't reached out to the code magic team yet, but certainly would welcome any outreach.
And the next is we have. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the general idea of us managing the builds or working with a partner to manage the build and manage the store submissions for you makes total sense. And I think that we should do that. Both Expo and Microsoft's App Center do exactly that as sort of their primary offering, with Code Push being an ancillary thing. Yeah. We started with Code Push specifically because it was just such a highly voted issue. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say there are two more. I'm going to go out of order and answer the easy one first. Do app updates use Wi-Fi or cellular? They work on both. As Eric mentioned earlier, the patch sizes, as we're currently seeing them, and we're still kind of figuring all this out, but the patch sizes as we currently seeing them are very, very small. So I don't think it would be very unfriendly to the user's data plan if it were downloaded via cellular. But if, again, as with this and absolutely everything else, if that is something that is important to you, please, 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 please file an issue and let us know, because that's, again, how we know.
Yeah, I think to say a little more there. So right now, the app updates run regardless. They don't look at the network state. I think that would be a very straightforward thing to add. We have not added that yet, where we prefer an only update on unmetered networks. I think that's a reasonable expectation of the users. As Brian said, we typically see patch sizes that are about 50K, which I don't know how much 50K costs in various networks. But I think it's very reasonable for us to only update on unmetered networks. We don't currently support that today, but it is straightforward to add. Android has that capability. We just haven't wired it up.
And then what I think we can say is the last question. I mean, if anyone has any more questions, certainly feel free to post them in the chat. We have a team to help and get add to app up and working. For a use case, app has around 10 to 12 million users. How can we make this happen? And an addendum to that is we use add to app with multiple engines, as mentioned in the last query. And I believe, Felix, you recently filed an issue for that.
Yep. I just linked to it above. I can find it again.
Yep, I got it.
Here it is again.
Yep.
480. I just had it
on the draw
in a tab.
Yes. So there's that bug. Tell us, upvote it. Tell us all about what you need, and we will definitely be in touch as we. This sounds like a really important use case to a lot of people. So we would definitely be in touch to figure out what the right way to do that.
Yeah, so Aman, I will reach out. But also, anyone else who's listening with a million user app or similar, we do have a private channel for large apps, and we'd be happy to add you to such, where we're happy to discuss things about talking about how to integrate your app. Similarly, for anyone who's subscribed to Shorebird today, we have a private support channel where we work with customers to make sure that they are supported in taking their app to production.
Last try, I switched to the table. So I re-released in the background while we were answering the remaining questions. So I'm back to where we were, where things failed before. So I'm going to change use material to true and try this one more time where I run Shorebird patch. And fingers crossed, we can do a demo. If the demo gods are on our side. Yeah, things never work as you expect in a live demo. Okay, looks like we got farther than last time. So it tells us we have some patches for Android, the sizes of the patches. And that looks good, so I'm going to continue. So we've published the patch. So now the next time we launch the app, it will download the patch in the background. And hopefully that was enough time. And if all worked well, yay, we have Material 3 now instead of Material 2. So that's kind of what the demo should have looked like the first time around.
That's amazing. Something changed about Dart 3. Do you see those patch sizes?
Yeah,
that's much. Yeah.
I think something changed about how Dart 3 does its compiled code layout.
Mm-hmm.
Our previous minimum patch size, like the smallest I'd seen, was 30K. It's really good to see.
This is how quickly we move. I mean, being 150
bytes. So that's good.
Yep. Let me stop sharing. Second time. Is
there any support team that I can ask after this meeting? Yes, you are. It is us. You are here. You can ask in the meeting. We have, I think, a support channel. Let's see, where did my actual Discord window go?
Yeah, just DM me, Noel, or anyone else who would like help. Particularly if you, if you're trying to help convince your company or interested in discussing about more serious integration. We're relatively early on this journey, right? The company was only formed a few months ago, but obviously everyone in this room has created lots of great stuff, and we're going to create lots of great stuff here at Shorebird, but it's important to talk to users now, talk to users early, and make sure that we're building the things that you want. So
We're all
let
here.
us know
We
how we
all,
can help.
yeah, we all really want to help. So
Yep.
please, 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 please do not hesitate to ask.
And we're always on Discord, pretty much. Like,
Maybe more than we should be.
yeah.
Yeah.
In any case, have a wonderful weekend, all. Thank you for coming out to the AMA, and let us know if you'd like us to do this again. Take care.
Thanks so much.